Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshumilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Manupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmaitaya Tadavo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatasmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptashta Kamadi Tarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Saranam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So we begin by offering our most humble obeisance to the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus and to Sri Guru Pada Padmana Talita Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tarasat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padmana Talita Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asto Tarasat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga to all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So this is deliberations. Today, I was wondering what to do. Since we did so much on Nam Tattva, 10 offenses, Nam Aparad, nature of Shuddhanam, I thought we should read chapter 25 of the Jaiva Dharma entitled Prameya Namabhasa, because it's a very important subject matter, obviously. It's been included in the Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But it's important because in our development of bhakti, we have to be able to recognize and distinguish between that which is favorable, that which is unfavorable, that which is real and that which is unreal or a semblance, partial representation, especially when considering Sri Nam. Because now, holy name is manifesting itself in many ways, many places, right? But some of those manifestations are genuine and some are not. Some are only a reflection, an offensive reflection. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's going to explain the stage between Nam Aparad and Shuddhanam, which is Nam Abhas. Right? So, this is the story of Vijay and Brajanath receiving instruction from Raghunath Das Babaji. So the next day, shortly after Sandhya, Vijay and Brajanath came before the respected Babaji, and having offered Sashtang Dandavat, they took their asanas. Vijay took the opportunity to humbly ask, Prabhu, kindly have mercy upon us and tell us everything about Namabhasa Tattva. We are very anxious to know about the secret of Namabhasa. So Babaji answered, you are very fortunate. If you want to understand Nam Tattva, you must understand 3 subject matters very well. Nam, Namabhasa, and Nam Aparad. So Nam means Shuddhanam, right? I have already explained so much about Nam and Nam Aparad. And now I will explain about Nam Abhas, which means the semblance of Sri Nam. Vijay, what is Namabhasa, and how many kinds of abhas are there? Babaji replies, the word abhas means luster, shadow, or reflection. As the radiance that emanates from a naturally lustrous object has effulgence, or kanti, or shadow, chaya, so the sun-like name has two kinds of abhas. One is the shadow, which is nam chaya, and the other is the reflection, nam pratibimba. Learned people who are conversant with bhakti-abhas, bhava-abhas, nam-abhas, and Vaishnav-abhas say that all kinds of abhas have two divisions, pratibimba, reflection, and chaya, or shadow. So he just mentioned all these other aspects, bhakti-abhas, bhava-abhas, nam-abhas, Vaishnava-abhas, right? That's important to take these into consideration also, because as we're developing in our bhakti, in our progression, chanting Nam, right, gradually better and better, also our bhakti is improving. We're also starting out as Kanishta, and then gradually Madhyam, and all the different varied divisions of that, and then finally into Bhav Bhakti. But even in Bhav, there is an abhas, what appears to be Bhav by external symptoms, but which is actually not, and Namabhas and Vaishnava, people that may dress and pose as Vaishnavas, and they may be Vaishnavas, but not so advanced yet on the preliminary stages, or they may be somebody who looks like a Vaishnava but has no quality of a Vaishnava at all, and actually may be a great offender. So, he says there are divisions in Nam and Bhakti, Bhav, Nam, and Vaishnav, right? Abhas there. And in both of them, there are Pratibimba, the reflection, and Chaya, the shadow. He's going to explain that more in a bit. So Vijay wants to know, what is the relation between Bhakti Abhas, Bhav Abhas, Nam Abhas, and Vaishnava Abhas? Babaji, Vaishnavas practice Harinam. And when their practice is on the level of Bhakti Abhas, then their practice of Nam is called Nam Abhas. They themselves are also Vaishnava Abhas, not pure Bhaktas. Bhav and Bhakti are one and the same thing. It is only because they are on different levels that they are known by different names. Okay. Vijay, on which platform is the jiva called Vaishnava Abhas? Babaji says, Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 47, says, now this is the conversation between the Navi-Yogendras and Maharaj Nimi in that beginning of the 11th canto. So, Archayam eva haraye, pujam ya shradhaye hate, natad bhakteshu chanyeshu sa bhakta prakritasmrita. One is a materialistic devotee, a kanishta. If he accepts the Archamurti of Bhagavan as Srihari and worships him with faith, but does not faithfully worship Krishna's bhaktas or other jivas. This is definitely Vaishnava Abhas, right? In this shloka, the word Shraddha is mentioned. However, the intended meaning is Shraddha Abhas, not pure Shraddha. Because if one worships Krishna but not his bhaktas, then his Shraddha is either Chaya, shadow, or Pratibimba, reflection. that faith is worldly faith. It is not spiritual faith. It's not aprakat shraddha. Therefore, we should understand that anyone in whom we see that faith is a materialistic devotee, a prakrita bhakta, or a semblance of a Vaishnava, Vaishnava Abbas. Sometimes it's said Vaishnav Prai, right? Srimad Mahaprabhu has said that Sri Raghunath Das, Goswami's father and uncle, Hiranya and Govardhan, were Vaishnav Prai. This means that they accepted Vaishnav markings and dress and chanted Namabhasa as if they were Shuddha Bhaktas. But actually they were not pure Vaishnavas. And that's interesting because their nephew is Raghunath Das. They were known to be extremely pious. They supported entire villages of Brahmanas. When Haridas Thakur came to their house and one of their Brahmanas that was living there, assisting in the different affairs of the household, offended Haridas Thakur, they shunned him and kicked him out. They had faith in Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, but to what extent? Because remember, when Raghunath Das wanted to leave home, they were opposed. They did not allow him. They put guards on him. They said, oh, you can practice bhakti, but just at home, right? There's no need to go off and be renounced. You can be a grihastha bhakta and practice here, and then later when you become an old man, then you can be a renunciate. But for now, no. So they didn't have full understanding or realization of really the nature of bhakti. And another symptom of that is, of this ordinary or worldly faith, this is a kind of a general faith in the deity, but if you don't also recognize and honor Vaishnavas, that's a symptom of worldly faith. Being able to honor Vaishnavas, appreciate Vaishnavas, even if you have disagreements with them, different service attitude or different understanding of what's to be done or what's not to be done, there are always going to be varieties in Vaishnava communities. But we have to be able to recognize the underlying quality of Vaishnavata, the sincerity of all, and honor and support. Right? You can't criticize Vaishnavas. If you do, and if you don't have faith and affection for Vaishnavas, then you're not a Madhyam yet. You're still a Kanishta. Right? Now, what does that mean with those who are Vaishnav Prai? Well, he's not a Vaishnava, it's Kanishta. I don't have to honor him. He's bogus. Look, he's doing all this bogus stuff. Still, we should be humble and support and honor all and not let our false ego get in the way in our dealings. Rather, we should strive for the attitude of the Madhyam, which is in dealing with Kanishta Vaishnavas who are innocent and ignorant, we should have compassion and support them and not become disturbed by their inadequacies. Their inadequacies are not our inadequacies, or the inadequacies of the Madhyam. I'm not a Madhyam, so he's saying that the Vaishnav Prai, or Vaishnav Abbas, not a Vaishnava, is this verse. I'll read it once more. Very important verse. There are 3 verses describing the 3 gradations of Vaishnava in that section of the Bhagavatam, and they are repeated by Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami in the 22nd chapter of Madhya Lila, a very extensive discussion of Vaishnavas. Acharyam eva haraye, pujam ya shradhaye hate, nadpadeshu chanyeshu, sa bhakta prakita smrita. One is a materialistic devotee, a Kanishta, if he accepts the Archamurti of Bhagavan as Sri Hari and worships him with faith, but does not faithfully worship Krishna's bhakta or other jivas. See, it didn't just say the bhakta, other jivas. Why other jivas? They're also created by Krishna, right? They're also parts and parcels. But then again, we can still distinguish the jivas according to their quality. Are they innocent and ignorant, or are they opposed and demonic? If they're opposed and demonic, we keep our distance, right? But great devotees, they even honor animals, seeing the supersoul within their heart, right? Seeing them as part and parcel. Bhagavad Gita has that verse, how the sincere yogi sees the dog eater, the brahmana, the elephant. What is that? Shuni chaiva svapake cha pandita samadarshina. He sees all of them with equal vision, right? So until you come at least into madhyam, it's very hard to cultivate that vision, right? So, using the example of Raghunath Das Goswami's father and uncle, Haranya and Govardhan, he's making the point very clearly, because they lived in the community of Vaishnavas, they practiced Vaishnav principles, they supported and gave donations to Vaishnavas, lots of donations, right? And sometimes we see that people that are very wealthy and give a lot of money, sometimes they're praised as great Vaishnavas. Now, it's true that Vaishnavas will encourage them because they're supporting Vaishnav activities, supporting preaching. But that's not to say that they are advanced just because they're given money, right? That's not the qualification. What is their motive, right? If your motive is recognition, honor from others, oh, I am so generous, right? And there's a story, actually. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was walking, I believe this was in Navadvip. It could have been in Vrindavan. I think it was Navadvip. They're non-different. Doesn't matter where it is. The story is equally relevant. And he was walking on the parikram path along with his, or the village path, along with his disciples. Many of them were grihastas, and he had many very affluent grihasta disciples. And so they were walking with Srila Prabhupada, part of his inner group, right? That's what they're thinking. And then a lady came out from a hut, an old widow, very poor, very poor. And she wanted to give something to Saraswati Prabhupada. And she had a coin, like a paisa or something, very insignificant. And by this time, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was maybe 100 meters ahead. And she wanted to have him stop so she could give this to him. But the Grihasta disciples were very proud of saying, what does Prabhupada need with your paisa, you old lady, insignificant old lady, he's too busy for you, right? So they wouldn't let her, and but then all of a sudden, at a distance, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada stopped. And he turned around and he walked all the way back. And he saw the old lady, and he stopped and he spoke to her in a very gentle and compassionate way, right? Which filled her heart with joy. And then she gave him her paisa or 2 paisa, whatever it was. Even back then, although you could do something with a paisa, with a few paisa, not much. And then he comforted her, thanked her profusely for her donation, and then they walked away. And he spoke to his disciples, and he said, what that lady has given is everything. These few paisa represent her savings for 6 months or a year. This is everything she had, and she's given it to me. Even though you might give me hundreds or thousands or lakhs of rupees, you know, it's insignificant in relation to your overall wealth. She has given more than you do. Even though you're considering it insignificant, I consider it so significant because of the degree of surrender, right? So it's not what you give, it's what percentage of your heart, what percentage of your your wealth, your existence, right? Uh, so they were very wealthy and they gave so much, but their hearts were not as pure yet. They wouldn't even let their own nephew go to join and serve Mahaprabhu. Ultimately, they came around, they had to, but they were not on that level yet. So now Vijay says, can Mayavadis also be called Vaishnava Bhas if they accept the symbols of a Vaishnava and chant Sri Nam? Babaji says, no. They cannot even be called Vaishnava Bhas. They are simply offenders, so they are called Vaishnav Aparadi. In one sense, they might be called Vaishnava Bhas because they have taken shelter of Pratibimba Namabhasa and Pratibimba Bhavabhas, but they are such great offenders that they are to be separated even from the name Vaishnava. So we're going to hear in a little bit the difference between Chaya Namabhasa, Chaya Bhavabhas, and Pratibimba Namabhasa and Pratibimba Bhavabhas. This Mayavad practice, it may externally resemble the practice of the devotee. They may even chant. But what is their motive? Is their motive devotionally based, or is it self-interested? Is it to cultivate love, affection, and service to Bhagavan, or is it to pursue independent means and become one with God themselves in the wrong way, not in the mood of becoming tadatmik with the loving desires of Bhagavan, but thinking they're going to merge into the impersonal element of Bhagavan. And their bhav, their displays of ecstasy, which they sometimes demonstrate when they're chanting or doing things, are simply imitative and based on their thought that, so easily I'm going to use this process and merge into the into the Brahman, and so they become very ecstatic. And it may have been because they connected with a great devotee, and the rays of that devotee's prema went into their heart, but it affected them, but their mentality is so crooked that it comes out like this. He's going to explain this more. Vijay says, Prabhu, please explain the symptoms of Shuddhanam even more clearly so that we may easily understand it. Okay, so in other words, in order to understand Namabhasa, let's reflect back on or consider again Shuddhanam. Babaji answers, Shuddhanam means taking Nam with a favorable attitude while remaining free from all material desires, anyabhilash, and from coverings of jnana, karma, and so on. To desire the supreme bliss that comes when the transcendental nature of Nam manifests clearly is not anyabhilash. Anyabhilash means separate desire, right? So he's using these terms, which are also used by Rupa Goswami to describe pure bhakti, right? Pure bhakti, pure nam, they're non-different. Krishna, his name, his bhakti, they're all non-different. So the verse, Anya Bilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadyanavritam, free from separate desire, free from the coverings of karma, reward-seeking activity, and knowledge that seeks impersonal liberation, right? So Shuddhanam is free from that, and it is Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam, chanted with a favorable attitude towards Krishna, everything for his benefit. You could say his happiness, but his most exalted devotees sometimes do things which don't make him immediately happy, at least externally. Like when Mother Yashoda bound him, right, to the mortar, he was not pleased. He wanted to go play with his friends. But her Vatsalya love was so powerful, and the reason she bound him was for his benefit and out of pure affection. She wanted him to be a good boy, and he was a bad boy. So I'm going to punish you. And he said, well, I'll run away. So to prevent him from running away and to show him you just can't break things and lie about it, she bound him. He didn't want to. And therefore, his Yogamaya potency prevented him being bound by always making the rope 2 fingers too short, no matter how much she gathered. So then she kept trying, and her love was so pure, and her intention was so pure, that ultimately Krishna had to submit. So you can't just say that bhakti is that which gives pleasure to Krishna. That's overextension of the definition, right? Because sometimes Krishna fights demons like Chanura and Mustika, and that gave him great pleasure. But was that bhakti? No, because they wanted to kill him. Right? So, favorable desire. So, also, when we're chanting, we may want, I want Krishna Prem. I want Paramananda. That's not unfavorable, because that's a natural consequence of bhakti. And that may support our efforts. Ultimately, though, the highest stages of devotees, like the gopis, they don't even desire their own happiness. They're completely free from even that. But, ironically, Krishna's so pleased with them that even though they don't seek it, when they see Krishna being happy by their service, it makes them ecstatic. And they get the highest symptoms and experiences of spiritual ecstasy. But we can desire that, because it's an aspect of bhakti. It's not the same as desiring material happiness or material pleasure. We're wanting Paramananda. What is pure Paramananda? It's the joy of making Krishna happy. That's what Paramananda is. So he says, to desire supreme bliss that comes when the transcendental nature of Nam manifests clearly is not anyabhilash. All kinds of desires apart from that, such as the desire to be free from sins and to gain liberation, are certainly anyabhilash. There will be no Shuddhanam so long as anyabhilash remains. One will not receive Shuddhanam as long as he still desires the fruits of performing jnana, karma, yoga, and so on. Right? So, very subtle, very subtle. But it's important to understand what it means to desire the bliss of Paramananda, because Paramananda, in its true sense, means the joy of making Krishna happy, of serving Krishna, right? So that's not a separate desire. That's not an anyabhilash. That's also Krishna's desire. Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala, and that is, he always is the well-wisher of his devotees. So, Shuddhanam comes from accepting Nam with only favorable inclinations and rejecting all unfavorable emotions from the heart. If one keeps these characteristics of bhakti in mind and deliberates carefully, it becomes clear that Shuddhanam is certainly that Nam which is free from Namaparad and Namabhasa. Therefore, Sri Gaurachandra, the merciful avatar for Kali Yuga, has said, Trinad api sunichena, tador api suhishnana, amanina manadena kirtaniya siddhahari. One should think himself more insignificant and lower than the straw in the street, and should be more tolerant than a tree. He should give all respect to others without desiring any respect for himself. Then he will be qualified to chant Sri Harinam constantly. Usually when we hear this verse, we hear it in connection with we have to cultivate the mentality of humility, right? Which, obviously, offering respects to others, not expecting respect for ourselves. But when we look at it in connection with what he's just described, he said that Nam, with only favorable inclinations and rejecting all unfavorable emotions from the heart. So humility is a favorable emotion. Offering respects to others and not desiring respect for oneself, this means that you're free from pratistasha, the desire for recognition, for honor, for fame, right, from others. Because if that is motivating your activity, it's not pure. This is, described really succinctly in Manashiksha by Raghunath Das. And he says that even when one is completely free from kam, lobe, from lust and greed and anger and all these other symptoms of conditioned existence, the quality of desire for recognition and respect and honor may still be there. And he says that will prevent you from getting pure bhakti. So, as a manina, I don't want any respect for myself. I want to offer all to others. And I'm like a tree, I'm tolerant in the face of all circumstances. Whatever anybody does to me, they cut my limbs, they take my fruit, they pick my leaves, they scrape my bark, they don't water me. I don't care. Right? I'm completely Gobradve Vadanam Tata. Krishna's my protector, Krishna's my maintainer. Whatever he wants to do with this body, that's up to him. Right? And very, very humble, insignificant. Then you become free from unfavorable emotions and inclinations in the heart, right? That's what this verse is, right? That's why we have to meditate on that carefully. And these things are always coming up. Every day we're struggling with this, right? These unfavorable inclinations. But until we get to that point, we can't chant Harinam constantly, right? And we can't chant properly. So, now Vijay asks a question. What is the intrinsic difference between Namabhasa and Nam Aparad? Let's see here. Okay, we'll start the beginning of that. So what's the difference intrinsically between Namabhasa and Nam Aparad? Because we're trying to get at least to Namabhasa, right? If you go to if you're only a Nam Aparad, you'll never make advancement. In fact, you may derail your inclination to practice bhakti. So he's going to give this distinction, subtle. When there is no Shuddha Nam, Sri Nam is called Nama Abhas. That Namabhasa is called Namabhasa at one stage and Nam Aparad at another stage. In other words, Nam Aparad is also Nam Abhas. Right? They're chanting, but it's a semblance. But when but there's a different gradation of Namabhasa. Nam Aparad is the offensive. Namabhasa is something a little different. Let's hear what he says. It is called Namabhasa when the name that is chanted is impure because one is in ignorance. That is to say, one is under the control of illusion and inattentiveness. Right? However, when the name is chanted impurely with a desire for sense enjoyment, bhoga, or liberation, moksha, and based on a Mayavad conception, that is known as Nam Aparad. If the other kinds of aparad that I told you about before are present because of simple ignorance, the ashuddha nam, impure name, taken in that situation is not nam aparad, but nam abhas. You should remember that as long as one does not commit nam aparad when one is chanting nam abhas, there is hope that the nam abhas will go away and that shuddha nam will arise. However, if there is nam aparad, the rising of nam in the heart can only take place with great difficulty. There is no means to obtain benefit other than the method that I have already explained to become free from the offenses against Sri Nam. Okay. So, this is important to understand. There's some grace here in this Nam Abhas, this attempt to come to Nam Abhas, because he says, what's the difference? Both are chanting impurely, but the Nam Aparadi is chanting impurely because of impure desires, completely separate desires. I'm chanting for sense enjoyment. The karma kandis, they use Harinam in their, and even Gyanis will use the Harinam because some of the limbs of bhakti are employed in the practices of the Gyanis and the Karmis within the context of Varnashram to reach their impure goals, right? And chanting for that purpose is Nam Aparad. It's not Nam Abhas, it's not Shuddha Nam. In fact, even though they're practicing what appears to be bhakti, it's also Bhakti Abhas. It's a special form that Bhakti Devi takes, not Shuddha Bhakti. It's a form she manifests in order to reward those activities to these materialistic people. This is described in Madhurya Kadambini. Because bhakti empowers everything. Without Krishna's sanction, nobody can get anything, right? Yeyatam mam prapadante tangsta daiva bhajamyaham. But as you desire, I will reciprocate and reward you accordingly. So if you have material desires or desire for impersonal liberation in that impure way, then he creates a condition by which you may achieve that. However, even there's some mercy because they're following Varnashram rules and regulations. They're practicing a form of bhakti that may give them the opportunity to get the association of Shuddha Bhaktas and act charitably or favorably towards them because of the rules and regulations of Varnashram, so that the seeds of bhakti can be planted, right? So even for those persons, there's an opportunity. But you have to understand that when your desire is impure, then it becomes Nam Aparad. You don't chant Nam Aparad. You don't chant Nam to be rewarded with material things. That's Nam Aparad, right? You don't chant Nam to get mystic cities. You don't chant Nam to get impersonal liberation. See, so it's a matter of intent. But when the aparads that we know about, those 10 offenses, are there because of ignorance, maybe complete ignorance, they don't know anything about Nam or the 10 offenses, that's one kind of Nam Abhas. He says ignorance or inattentiveness, right? What is that? That's inattentiveness is caused by ignorance. It's caused by material conditioning. He says, when one is in ignorance, that is to say, when one is under the control of illusion and inattentiveness. What's the illusion? I'm this body. I'm controlled by the body. This body's distracting me. This body's making me sleepy. So I'm chanting Harinam. I'm struggling. I'm trying to do my best. The nature of these offenses, they inhabit my consciousness. When I look at the offenses, I'm not able to follow my Guru's instructions completely. I don't have full realization of Sri Guru. I might be making some offense about Guru. I might have some doubt. I don't have full knowledge of the holy name. I'm confused. But I don't want to be, So I'm chanting. These things inhabit my mind because of my conditioning, but I want to get beyond that. And so if we're chanting with that knowledge of our inadequacies and praying with humility that these be removed, then you're in Namabhasa, right? But there are gradations of Namabhasa. There's preliminary Namabhasa, and then there's, more advanced Namabhasa. There's so many divisions at every stage of bhakti that we do. So that's why it's important to be conscious, to be attentive to your chanting. And when the mind drifts, drag it back. And when it drifts, pray to Sri Guru. Oh, please help me. Right? Please help me. Pray to our acharyas. Pray to Lord Nityananda. Pray to Mahaprabhu. Pray to their associates. That's why we chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivas, Adi Gaur, Bhakta, Bhaktivinoda. Oh, please, all of you, help me, help me, help me. Then we get help. And then if you continue to chant that Namabhasa, that will gradually move you towards Shuddhanam. I asked Gurudev that same question one time in Bangalore when he was visiting the mat established by Sripad Dandi Maharaj out in, where is that? Hesaragata? No, not Hesaragata. What's the other place? Hesaragata is where we lived. Anyway, Sri Raghunath Gaudiya Math. Ranganath Gaudiya Math. Gurudev was there, and he was sitting on a veranda, and there's just 2 or 3 of us there, and I asked him about this progression. And he said, well, first you're just chanting Namaparad. But by continuous chanting and doing seva, then some Namabhasa may appear. And when Namabhasa appears, gradually more and more Namabhasa. And Namabhasa is very powerful. It can remove sin, it can remove all of these obstacles, and gradually more and more Namabhasa until Namaparad is gone. And then at one point, all of a sudden, you may be chanting a Shuddhanam, and then more and more Shuddhanam, and less Namabhasa until we're completely immersed in Shuddhanam. Okay. So then the next question is, if someone is performing Namabhasa, what must he do that his Namabhasa may become Shuddhanam? So that's a good place to leave off, and we'll begin there tomorrow, right? So there we are. So we will offer our respects to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, all the Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, all our Guru Parampara, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.